Hello and welcome to this episode of my YouTube channel. In this episode I talk about another failure in the space industry. This time is for SpaceX. On 2015, Falcon 9 rocket from SpaceX exploded just 2 minutes after the liftoff. NASA has two contractors to deliver the cargo to the ISS at that time. It was SpaceX and Orbital ATK. Both of them has a failure during the liftoff in less than a year. I talked about the failure in the Orbital ATK in the previous video. This time Falcon 9 has a cargo which worth more than 100 million US dollar, and the main component of the cargo was a adapter in order to facilitate the docking to the International Space Station. The investigation team are made of from NASA, SpaceX, US Air Force and FAA. While they're collecting the debris, they also look at the telemetry data and video and photograph during the liftoff. Telemetry data is a measurement of the information of the rocket during the liftoff and transmission to the control unit on the ground. Investigation team make a fault tree block in order to figure out where the problem happened, and NASA wants to review the data for stage 2 independently. The rocket went from flying well to the explosion in less than a second, so it was very difficult to figure out where the anomaly happened, and they come with two scenarios. The first scenario was that the fuel from propulsion system leak into the liquid oxygen and helium tank. This scenario didn't provide enough thermal energy to initiate the explosion. The second scenario was the other way around, and in this scenario the thermal energy was enough to start the explosion, but it doesn't provide any information why the explosion happened so fast. Since in the video they can see a spread of some kind of gas outside of the rocket just before the explosion. So NASA asked the Marshall Space Flight Center to make a test, and in 2 weeks they test the two scenarios, and they figured out that the scenario 2 most probably happened. By an example, I explain why this explosion happened. Imagine that the gas tank of the barbecue as a liquid oxygen tank, and the CO2 tank of the sparkling water as a helium tank, which is connected upside down to the liquid oxygen tank. So these two tanks are connected together, and helium tank is upside down. They are connected with the strut, and during the liftoff it was exposed to the high acceleration G. So strut fade and the helium tank shoot to the wall and break. The helium spread over the capsule, and it caused the liquid oxygen tank a rupture. So the oxygen also leak into the other system like avionic and propulsion system. The oxygen is very flammable, and it caused the explosion very fast. The reason that the strut failed is because the SpaceX used off-the-shelf product in order to make the rocket. I explained also in the previous video the private sector wanted to make the cost down, so they used the off-the-shelf product as many as possible. But this time the strut should have aerospace certificate, and the strut which they bought from the market has the industrial grade. The aerospace grade of the strut has a space alloy which can tolerate more G than the industrial grade. Investigation team came with some recommendation, the same as the previous failure in the Orbital ATK. They want to go for more improved contract between NASA and SpaceX, and some management recommendation. For the technical, they also use the strut from aerospace grade, and SpaceX also made team to review or control the design and reliability. This recommendation works well, and SpaceX could launch a Falcon 9 upgrade version after this failure. The reason that this failure happened is some kind of related to the brain. It names normalization of the deviation. Brain get used to some level of risk after the first time it's exposed to that risk. The engineer in the SpaceX, they get used to the product from off the shelf and it works well without any problem. They bought the handle off the shelf and use it in the Falcon 9. But for the Strad, it was in the cryogenic area and the off-the-shelf product cannot tolerate that force. But they forget about that because they use off-the-shelf product a lot and they think that okay, this is the same as other and can be used without any problem. For example, you pass from the red light. The first time it's you are very concerned if nothing happened, but after the first time when it was safe, the second time you go with less concern and maybe higher speed. This is because of the brain get used to the risk of the passing the red light and in future it is more carelessly than the first time. This can have both good side and bad side. It was very risky for human to fly, and after the first flight for a few minutes the brain get used to that sort of risk, and the second time longer right now between two continents. This is the good side of the training brain to some sort of the risk. I finish this video here and I will come back again with another failure in the space industry.